Hello, phoners. Let's get my microphone. This is Destin. House Fox. This is December 88. Season 5, episode 6. Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken. Enjoy the show.
This testimony is an insult to a great house. Why should the faithful or anyone else take the word of a squire over the heir to Highgarden?
He has a birthmark, Your Grace. Quite high on his thigh. Wine-coloured and roughly the shape of dawn.
What are you doing? Let us pass.
The faith is satisfied there is enough evidence to bring a formal trial for Sir Loras and Queen Marjorie.
What?
Bearing false witness before the gods is as grave a sin as any, my lady. Take her.
Tommen! Tommen! You can't do this. I am the queen. Tommen! Tommen! I am your queen. How dare you? Take your hands off.
Keeping the torch lit through the long night, it's Game of Microphones. With Lord Sterling, Sir Duncan, and Lady Rachel of House Fox.
Good morrow, cock merchants and captive queens, and welcome to Game of Microphones. I'm Lord Sterling, Sir Duncan, master of the trickster god.
And I'm Lady Rachel of House Fox, battler of microphone grumpkins and computer snarks.
And this is episode 88.
On this episode of our series Rewatch, we're covering Game of Thrones, Season 5, Episode 6, Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken.
And in case you're not already aware, this series Rewatch is from the perspective of someone who is current on the show. That means you've seen up through Season 7. If not, there's still time to taste the sweet, steely kiss of Areo Hota's axe, so you don't have to hear these spoilers.
Warning.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
This is a good episode. We say that every episode,
I
though.
know, this show is just so good.
It's just good.
Oh, darn. Thank you for torturing us with excellence, HBO.
Right. I'm never going to be able to watch anything again. Except for the spinoffs.
Oh, yeah, that'll be fun. I'm hoping they greenlight more than one of them.
I think they will. I think this is... HBO makes way too much money on this whole thing to not try to continue it as long as possible.
Capitalize with numerous tentacles.
Yeah, and there's so much to go off of, and I think the more that they go off, they'll probably lose some audience, but they'll also gain some audience depending on
the style of the new show kind of thing.
On the show.
With 8,000 years of history to explore.
Pretty much. But yeah, I mean, we kind of go several places here. This is definitely a good episode for Arya. And, you know, we see a lot of her, and Jorah and Tyrion are adventuring. Cersei is playing the games with Baelish.
Machinating.
I mean, there's a lot happening. We're right in the middle of this season, so this is... The minutia of this season is definitely being felt in this episode.
Right. I mean, Jaime got captured. Queen Marjorie was taken into custody. This is a huge episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
So...
What do you got for number 5?
Okay. My number 5 is Arya's first assignment to be the god of death. Basically.
Nice. Yeah, I had Arya gets an assignment written down in one of my notes too.
Nice. So this is where the man walks in with his daughter, and he's carrying his daughter, and the man says Valar Morghulis. Can't say it now without laughing.
Valar Morghulis.
So, and Arya responds, I'm just going to let you do it from now on.
I think people are going to laugh.
Because I sound like a freak when I do it.
I think people are going to think that was so funny.
Oh my God.
It was great.
He sounded like such a nerd.
And we just keep laughing and laughing for like a minute too.
Because it was so fucking stupid.
He said Valor Mugulis or something.
Mugulis. I was like thinking on the line of Harry Potter, apparently.
Valor Mugulis or something. Harry Potter, I don't remember that.
Like a muggle or whatever.
Oh, a muggle.
There's also the Muggles in Final Fantasy 14, which my husband plays.
Oh, nice. I've never played Final Fantasy.
He loves it.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard good things. The music is really good. I know that.
Yes, it's very good.
Yeah.
So the man goes, I have nowhere else to go. I have taken her to every healer in Bravos. I've spent every penny I had. She suffers every day of her life, and I just want it to end. Yeah, and during that, the camera angle cuts to show the little girl all slumped over and with her head leaning against the edge of the pool, sort of foreshadowing what Arya needs to do. Yeah, and she kind of looks around like, I'm the only one in here. I mean, she's been in there enough to know like what they do, but she's never done it herself. And right, her eyes are dashing back and forth, and she's like, "Do I do it? Am I going to get in trouble if I do it? Right. Am I getting in trouble if I don't do it? Like what's going to happen?" A girl realizes what she must do. Yeah. So interesting fact. I'm not sure if you've picked up on this. This girl that Arya kills in this scene with the pool water, the poison water, is the face that she wears when she goes to mess with Sir Meryn. Oh, Sir Meryn. No, Meryn. Damn, yeah, I didn't notice that. That's a good catch. Yeah, when she's getting whipped and she like looks up at him. Right. That's this girl. Good catch. So, yeah, I thought that was really cool that they brought her back. Yeah, and plus it's like Arya's first legit kill within the House of Black and White, so it makes sense for her to wear it in an important moment for her. To honor the girl, kind of, you know? Yeah, in fact, at that point, she hasn't made any other kills yet. This is her first and only kill up to that point as a faceless man. Because she tries to kill the actress after Meryn Trant because Jaqen's going to give her a second chance, right? Or am I like totally off? She's definitely assigned to kill the actress, and she chooses not to. Yes. So the little girl says to Arya, it hurts. And this is Arya's first story of being somebody else. Right. She sort of got trained throughout the rest, like the earlier part of the episode in the Game of Faces, and sort of picks up piece by piece how to do it as she's going. We'll talk more about that later, but this is the moment where it like all comes together for her and she successfully employs the Game of Faces. Yeah. She goes, I used to be like you. I was sick. I was dying. But my father never gave up on me. He loved me more than anything in the world, just like your father loves you. Kind of reminiscent of the Shireen situation. Definitely. Absolutely. So this is, this is all a lie, essentially, because she's never been sick or dying. But she goes even deeper and, says, my father prayed to the many-faced God, and I drank the water from this fountain, and it healed me. So fucked up. So the girl takes a sip, and then, she dies. And Arya is tasked with cleaning her body, but... Before that, though, Jaqen is like watching from the distance as Arya fills the cup. I love that camera scene, or that camera angle. Like, he's it looks in impressed, the shadows. Too. Yeah, like she just took this upon herself to do it. Right. So Jaqen opens the door and like starts walking down this beautiful staircase. And have you ever seen Phantom of the Opera? Yeah, not in a while, but it's a great movie. Great movie. It's a great play, but it reminds me of when the Phantom is leading Christine down the stairs to the catacombs of the opera house. With like the staircase and the candles and the torches, and it's kind of spirally. It's one of my favorite, moments in the play and in the movie of Phantom of the Opera. So maybe it just stuck with me, but it gave me that same vibe. Like she's going down into the belly of this, That's sick. I got to watch that again. House. It's been a while. Yeah, it's awesome. You're talking about the version with who's it? Gerard Butler playing the Phantom? Yes. Yes. Yeah, I remember the cinematography was really impressive in that movie. I loved it. Beautiful looking. Maybe I'll watch that tonight. No, seriously, it's one of my favorite. They tried to do it with Les Mis and with Anne Hathaway, and it was really good, but it just wasn't. It's better in a play, Les Mis, in my opinion. And the Phantom transitioned over to the cinema
really well,
cinematic really well. Yeah. So it just reminded me of that, and so she's following Jaqen down these beautiful staircases and the candles on the floor, and all of a sudden they come to the Hall of Faces. And it's like, I remember when we watched it the first time, we were just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What
huge,
is this place?
Thick columns, massively tall ceiling.
So I had a question. Is every face that they kill, does it go here? Or is it every face that is killed directly within the walls that go there?
It probably is a mix, but I also imagine, considering they've been doing it for so long, that they would just have so many faces that there's no way they could all actually even fit into the Hall of Faces. So I'm sure there's like people that keep some on them. And
yeah, I was curious how they like decide which ones to keep and which ones to discard. And
yeah, good question. I'm not sure.
Just sparked my curiosity because there were so many there, but it didn't seem like it was enough for it to be like all the kills that they've done.
Yeah, totally.
So I love Jaqen. He says, is the girl ready to give up her ears, her nose, her tongue, her hopes and dreams, her loves and hates, all that make a girl who she is forever?
One of the creepiest fucking lines ever right there.
I know.
So creepy.
I was like, I had to pause it and rewind it. I was like, I never really remember him saying that before.
Right, watching it, like looking along with the script, you're paying attention to the words a lot, and you're like, God damn.
Yeah.
It's
like,
super dark.
That's crazy. And I love how he says this. He goes, no, the girl is not ready to become no one, but she is ready to become someone else.
Yeah, so cool.
And it was really cool because it's, again, she's being tested, whether she knows it or not. And as she passed these tests, she gets kind of to like the next level of training.
Yep.
So now she's going to go pretend to be Lana, if I'm not mistaken, the oyster cart girl.
Is it oysters, cockles, and something?
Oysters, clams, and cockles.
It's great.
And that's when we get Lara back, the horror from what's his face, the pirate guy
from
Salvador San.
Salvador.
Yeah. So lots of fun scenes coming up for Arya, and this is the start of that.
Totally.
So that was my number 5.
Nice. Yeah, it's also interesting. She seems to be fascinated by the faces as well. Just like we're asking all these questions about them and everything, she walks over and sort of fixates on this old woman's face, and she must be curious if they're real or if they're like costume faces or something, because she reaches out and touches her on the cheek, and it's while Jaqen is kind of giving her his monologue.
Yeah, she's in awe, and she's like, "What is this? Like, are these statues? Are they like real?
They need to make a Game of Thrones video game, like a really sick Skyrim style video game, big open world type thing.
Oh my God, that'd be so
Because
awesome.
I really want to like walk around inside the House of Black and White.
Me too.
Maybe we'll podcast from there one of these days.
Yes, let's do it. So, do you have any other notes for this little scene here?
Not so much for this little tiny scene, but I just love the architecture of this building, and I really want to just explore it. So they did a real good job of creating a sense of mystery and wonder, and yeah.
They did. Absolutely. So what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Arya learning the Game of Faces. So we'll just take a few steps backwards and start at the beginning of the episode.
Awesome.
With Arya, who is washing bodies, silently doing what she's told and not asking questions, which is new for her. She seems like she's trying to adapt to the environment and follow the teachings.
She's washing them with a lot of care and too. Like, she's very meticulous about what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
respectful. Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally. So she's doing her thing, 3 different bodies, and these 2 faceless men come in, carry off the body, and they leave the door open one of the times, right? So she just goes to walk over and sort of peek through and maybe walk through. And right when she gets there, the waif just appears from nowhere and whack, slams the door shut. And I'm like, damn, how did she sneak up on her? So Arya, has this antagonistic sort of relationship with the waif. So she does decide to ask a question here. What are they doing with the bodies? And
get back to work.
Yeah, the waif's all pissed off, and she's like, what the fuck? I've been doing this for weeks and nobody tells me anything. Like, what the hell is going on? So the waif basically tells her to fuck off, which is typical. So she continues on and asks about when she gets to play the game. And the waif's like, what fucking game are you talking about? And
the Game of Faces. Right? Duh.
You tried, you failed. And she's such a, like, the waif is just such a twerp, man. She's like, she seems to be like smug and like full of herself. And that seems like contradictory to being no one to me. Just like her attitude is, it seems like the attitude of someone,
Right.
Someone
like
has that
she's
attitude.
Better than everybody.
Right. So Arya apparently didn't even know that she'd been playing the Game of Faces this whole time already. So the waif asks her who she is, and in typical Arya fashion, she's trying to fit in, so she says no one. She doesn't realize yet that she has to lie to play the Game of Faces. She's trying to pretend like she's no one when she should be pretending like she's somebody else.
She's somebody. Yes, yeah. Exactly.
So Arya is like getting frustrated, and she's like, well, who are you? What are you doing here? How'd you get here? And this is when Arya gets her first like real clue about how to play the Game of Faces. Typically, the waif is pretty unhelpful, but here she's actually pretty helpful by showing Arya the way to play.
Yeah.
So the waif comes up with a bullshit story. I'm from Westeros, just like you. Daughter of a lord, just like you. Only child, heir to his fortune. Mother died. Father remarried, and the story. And she's just basically coming up with all these lies, and it's really she's said a couple things that are making Arya relate to her, like being the daughter of a lord, being Westerosi. So Arya seems like genuinely moved by the story, like sympathetic.
She's smiling.
Yeah, and looks like concerned and stuff. And the waif, after she finishes and sees Arya's reaction, her smile slowly fades back to the deadpan look. And despite the unlikability of the character of the waif, I think that the actress does a really good job in this scene.
Me too.
Yeah. So then the waif's like, was that true or a lie? And Arya just looks like dumbfounded, like she has no idea what's going on.
She's like, what?
Yeah, what? It's great. And the waif asks her, did you believe every word I said? And Arya is just like, I don't even know what to fucking say to this. And the waif's just like, get back to work. And so then it cuts to Arya sleeping, and Jaqen wakes her up by asking, who are you?
Which is creepy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to wake up to that. I'd be like, what?
Yeah, that's pretty funny. So he's like, Arya, and he's like, where did you come from? And she's answering, Westeros, Winterfell, etc. But she decides to throw in a little bit of a lie when she's talking about her dad. So she says, daughter of Eddard Stark, he died in battle. And Jaqen whack hits her with the stick. A lie, he says. And so she's sort of figured out the scheme of the game at this point. So she continues telling things about her past with elements of truth mixed with fiction, about how she, after Ned was executed, she fled the cap. And each time she corrects the lie that she had been caught with beforehand.
Yes, to the truth.
Yeah, right. So after he was executed, I fled the capital. I had to kill a stable boy. Drove my sword through his back. When we all know it was through his belly. Whack. Again, a lie. And then so she changes it. I stabbed him in the gut. Tried to find my mother and brother. And then she says she was captured by a man named Polliver. Whack, again, it's a lie. We know it was the Hound. So she changes her story again. And she goes on to talk a little bit about them and saying that she left him in the mountains to die. She wanted him to suffer. She hated him. and Jaqen whack hits her again. And this seems to confirm our speculation that Arya
I have this in my notes.
removed the Hound from her list because she continues on sticking to this lie. I hated him, and whack, he hits her again. I hated him. Smack. And she's like,
that's not a lie.
Yeah. She's so intent on like pushing this narrative. And Jaqen's response is great. The girl lies to me, to the many-faced god, to herself. Does she truly want to be no one? But it is important. She's lying to herself. This means that she's conflicted about her feelings by the Hound. She sort of guiltily loves him, despite all of her reasons to hate him, which is funny because it sort of mirrors the conflicting facial expressions we saw on Tormund last week when Jon unchained him.
Yes.
You know, he looks so mad, but like his face is flickering with admiration at the same time. And he's struggling to come to grips with his true feelings, just like Arya is with the Hound here.
And I think it's funny because even Jaqen knows that she doesn't hate the Hound. Like,
right.
Arya may still think she hates the Hound, but Jaqen even knows that that's a lie.
And so that's another question. How does Jaqen know all this?
I don't know.
You know,
these faceless men like wig me out. I still feel like I'm missing half the story. Like there's more to unfold with them and uncover.
So much more. Well, you got to get there in the books because there's lots of good stuff in the books.
Okay, maybe I'm feeling like they should be more. What's the word I'm looking for? Like not mysterious, but like more of like a puzzle than they are. There's more to them than what they're giving on the show. I feel like there's missing pieces.
They're probably hiding some stuff to like reveal later on or something. I mean, there's only 6 episodes left and we kind of wrapped up that storyline, but maybe it'll come back around somehow. That'd be cool.
Yeah. I would like to read this in the books because I think it's probably a little bit better portrayed.
There's a lot of cool stuff that we don't get in the show.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So Jaqen, he says, the girl lies to herself. Does she truly want to be no one? And Arya says, yes. And he hits her again. And she starts bleeding out of her mouth. But calling her out on a lie, saying she wants to be no one, is important because it tells us that Arya doesn't want to give up her identity.
No, because she didn't get rid of Needle.
Exactly.
Either.
That's what that represented, which we talked about. So we know the truth here, that she doesn't want to not be Arya Stark. She doesn't want to be no one. Her identity is important to her. She can't give all that up. So she starts she gets frustrated by this and she's like, I'm not playing this stupid game anymore.
I know.
And Jaqen's response is great. We never stop playing.
We're always playing.
And I just thought that was a really interesting line. Like, we're always no one, you know?
Yeah.
It's just who we are.
Creepy.
Yeah. And then he kind of walks out and she's left sitting on the floor to contemplate all this madness.
Which it is. It's kind of madness. It's like when I watched it the first time, I was like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I don't know how this fits into the rest of the show.
Right. Like, what is happening?
You know, now that it's played out and I, have rewatched as many times as I have, I love it more than ever. But when I first watched it the first few times, I was like, this is weird.
First time for me, I had just finished the books because I read the books in between seasons 4 and 5.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So for me, first time through, I sort of knew a lot about what was happening, but it was really cool still. All the visuals to add to the, the mental imagery. It was sweet.
Yeah.
So that pretty much wraps up that scene with Jaqen walking out. And then the next time we come back to her, it's when she's sort of put all the pieces together and she manages to employ the game to execute that little girl, which is not funny. So I don't know why I was laughing when I said that. What do you got for number 4?
My number 4 is Cersei playing the role of Tywin.
Nice.
Which is Olenna and Cersei's conversation.
Nice. And I think one of mine has something to do with that too. Yeah, the famously tart-tongued Queen of Thorns.
Yes. Yes. So Olenna returns back to King's Landing because her grandson has been seized by the Faith Militant.
And she could smell that shit from miles away.
I love that. I love that
classic
scene. She's like, why are we stopped?
Mm-hmm.
Go on. So Elena does talk to Marjorie first, but my number 4 is when Cersei's sitting there, executing something that she learned from her father, which is writing while people are waiting for you.
Yeah, a little bit of a power play she picked up from him.
Mm-hmm, because Tywin does it to both Cersei and Olenna.
That's right. I forgot he did it to Cersei too.
And so Cersei is doing it to Olenna, and Olenna immediately sees what's going on here.
Yeah,
which is why she's like, put the pen down.
We both know you're not writing anything.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And so she's not too, because at the end of the episode, when Olenna walks out, Cersei stops writing, and
exactly. I have that in my notes too. She's not writing anything. She's just doing it to basically, play a role.
And that's the difference between her and Tywin, because Tywin was probably really writing some shit, like putting together the Red Wedding or something,
Yeah, I agree. He was probably actually doing stuff.
Yeah, like Tywin's pen strokes have weight.
So I love when Cersei goes, yes, the famously tart-tongued Queen of Thorns.
And the famous tart Queen Cersei.
Beg your pardon? You heard me, bitch.
I love that. Olenna's just so funny, man.
So Cersei is hiding behind the Faith Militant. Basically, Olenna is like, you are willing to give up our alliance because you're arming this Faith Militant. And Cersei is kind of hiding behind it. She's like, I didn't arrest Sir Loras.
Right.
I didn't, But it's like, everyone knows, Cersei, that you're the one that put this whole thing into play.
Right. You're not as smart as you think you are. Like, we all know.
Yeah. She goes, I was as shocked as anyone when the Faith arrested Sir Loras. I have no love for these fanatics, but what can a queen mother do? It's like, you shouldn't have done what you did in the first place.
Right.
And Olenna is trying to do play her game of, basically, the Reach is where all the food is grown and raised, and she has jurisdiction over that.
Right. Did you suddenly stop needing our troops and gold and all the supplies?
Yeah. And, Elena's like, I don't see how you could expect our alliance to continue if you're going to throw our pride and joy, our only male heir, into jail for being gay, which has never been an issue before, which Olenna and Marjorie talk about. I'm sure we'll talk about later. It's like, that was never enforced until Cersei gave power to the church.
Yeah, totally. And Cersei's like, as I said, I didn't imprison anyone. And as for your veiled threats.
What veil?
I love that. Olenna is the best. She's like, no, this is not a threat. This is a promise,
Yeah, and I really loved Olenna here. She goes, I didn't trust your father. I didn't particularly like him, but I respected him.
Yeah, he was no
fool. And I think this is, a slap in the face to Cersei being like, I don't trust you. I don't like you, but I also don't respect you. And I think you're a fool.
Yeah, totally.
Is what she's saying here.
Yeah, she's not really talking about Tywin. She's talking about Cersei by reflecting him
because
off of
Cersei
her.
is acting like Tywin in this scene, pretending to be more
Tywin.
Busy than she is, or, having this power play of, I'm so busy, I have to write letters while you sit here. And Cersei's response is so stupid to her.
Oh, right. She says, Tywin understood that sometimes we have to work with our rivals rather than try to destroy them.
Yeah, and Cersei goes, House Lannister has no rival. It's like, what are you talking about?
Wow, really? Your gold mines ran out.
Like, at this point, the North is against you. There's the Ironborn, we still have what's-his-face, Greyjoy up there saying that he's the king. quite frankly, they call Elena the Queen of Thorns. We have Dany to deal with. Like, if you don't think House Lannister has rivals, you're clearly mistaken.
Right. Everybody is out to get you right now after Tywin died.
And even Jaime says this to Cersei. They are going to come after us.
Yeah, exactly.
Because our dad's dead. So where's the disconnect? Why is Cersei... Did she really think that? Or is she just, like, putting on a show?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not... I don't know if she's really just completely disconnected. If she's as dense as quark gluon plasma, you know, or if she is... just like projecting confidence, faking it till she makes it.
I think she's faking it till she makes it because she and Jaime have had several conversations about their rivals and how their house is going to fall. And this becomes a huge concern in season 7 for Cersei. So I think it's in the back of her mind, but I think she's just fluffing her feathers up to make her look bigger than she actually is.
Totally. So she's faking it till she makes it, but at the same time, she's so dense to think that anybody buys it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a combination of both. She's faking it, and at the same time, she's also just completely clueless. So dumb.
So dumb, so dumb, so dumb, so...
It's the writing is on the wall that, okay, so these sparrows roll into town, you go talk to the High Sparrow, and the next thing the whole city knows, or at least the lords and ladies of King's Landing know, that the Faith Militant has been restored by the king, who's Tommen, who's like 12, and is more interested in having sex and avoiding violence. We all know it's you, Cersei.
He sounds like a flower child. Having sex and avoiding violence. It's the summer of 69.
He went to Woodstock with Justin Bieber's haircut.
Go. Summer of 69, exactly. Peace and love. Tom and Baratheon. That's his campaign slogan.
That's awesome.
Oh, he's such a dumbass.
Yeah, so Cersei, she goes on to say, the High Sparrow has called for an inquest, not a trial. Just a small hearing to determine whether the charges against Loras have merit, which I'm sure they don't. And it's like, okay, the grandma knows that Loras is gay. Cersei knows everybody knows that Loras is gay. So that's not, Loras will be freed. Our happy alliance will continue, and we'll forget this unfortunate conversation ever happened. Good day, Lady Olenna.
I swear the only reason that Olenna leaves is because she sees that arguing with Cersei is completely pointless. Like,
completely.
It's completely pointless.
It's
Cersei
lost upon her.
So dumb.
Yeah, it's lost upon her.
Yeah.
I think she would have continued to go at it if it was Tywin.
I have written down that Cersei is as dense as quark gluon plasma. Do you know what that is?
No,
it's a particle that was created with one of the high-speed particle accelerators. They collided stuff and made this plasma that's like so incredibly dense that like a cubic centimeter of it would weigh like 100 billion tons or something like that. That's how dense Cersei Lannister is.
Physics and chemistry just make my mind hurt. Just not a science person.
I feel ya.
Yeah, so that was my number 4. Do you have any other notes on this?
Just that Olenna had a bunch of hilarious lines, like when she's meeting with Marjorie before everything, she refers to Loras again as a pillow biter, which is funny. And what did she say? If they arrested all the pillow biters in King's Landing, there'd be no room left in the dungeons for anyone else. So there must be a lot of gay people there, apparently.
Yeah, and Renly Baratheon shagged half the stable boys in the 7 Kingdoms. Everyone knew, no one cared.
Oh yeah, and she seemed surprised that Tywin claimed he hadn't messed around with any guys in his lifetime either. Remember that?
Yeah, I think they're a little bit more free down south, and I think the farther south you go, the freer you get, because, Dorne is of that
it's
mindset
like the most
as well.
Extreme version.
Which I think the farther north you go, the more, like, respect of tradition
that's a good point.
Strictness. Like, Ned Stark was so disciplined and honorable and set in his ways and not showy. So it's like the frigid versus the fluid.
That's a great analogy, or a great great thing to pick up on. Good call. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So what was your number 4?
My number 4 is just basically the funny Queen of Thorns lines. You know?
Oh, okay. Well, why don't we just go through Elena and Marjorie's convo then?
Yeah, let's see what else there is. She's talking to Marjorie, and Marjorie's all stressed out. Cersei is behind this.
She's like, everybody knows this.
And Olenna tells her, "Get some rest, dear. You look appalling."
I know.
Just hilarious. I feel like that's something my grandma would have said. My grandma was the best.
Yeah.
We pretty much covered all the rest of that. Just so funny.
Yeah.
I love Olenna. Anytime she's on screen, it's going to be great.
Absolutely.
Stealing this show.
I like her little headpiece. It reminds me of the Disney version of Robin Hood.
Totally. So what's your number 3?
Good question. My number 3 is Baelish and Cersei.
Ooh.
I love these types of dialogue scenes between two power play people.
Yeah, definitely. Me too.
I always feel that it propels the story. There's lots of little nuances that you can pick up on. There's lots of just little things that you can gloss over and not pay attention to, but end up meaning a lot later down the line. And I felt this was kind of an interesting moment between Baelish and Cersei. So Baelish, again, everybody knows it's Cersei behind the Faith Militant, because even Baelish says, "Do you think it's wise, Your Grace, arresting their heir to Highgarden?"
Right, and he hasn't even been around. It's like just so painfully obvious.
And Cersei's like, again, she goes, "The Faith arrested the heir," and he's just like, "Fucking whatever."
He's like, yeah, whatever, dude.
Of course.
And the Faith were armed on your orders.
The king's orders, and of course, like, we know that Cersei has his ear. He's a young boy, and his mother is whispering things to him. Of course he's going to listen to her.
He's like, House Tyrell won't tolerate these insults. This is not going to work,
She's like, "I'm the insulted party, Lord Baelish. Loras was promised to me. Instead, he chose the company of boys."
Oh my God, this just cracks me up that she's playing the victim here.
Like, no, you are not even in the ballpark of being a victim in anything at all.
Yeah, and Littlefinger has a great dig back at her.
One's choice of companion is a curious thing.
Yes, most curious.
Yeah, and she spins it back on him.
Lysa was a repellent woman.
Oh, man.
I know you're still in mourning, though, so I won't talk any more shit about her.
Lysa was a good woman, a kind woman.
She was neither of those things. We both know it.
He took a dig at her incest first, and then she took a dig at his murder plot with Lysa.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She's like, "I know you. I see you."
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
He's like, "I know something about you." And she's like,
"Well, I know something about you, too."
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Their back and forths are freaking classic. Yeah, like you were saying, these clever back and forths between key players. It's like the word
like the Game of
Thrones.
Words.
Yeah, the Game of Words. There you go.
And
it's
so,
awesome.
We find now the reason Cersei summoned Baelish back to King's Landing, because she wants to know, if it comes down to it, will the Eyrie and the Lords of the Vale fight for the throne? That's the reason why she summoned him back, because as we've discussed in previous episodes, Cersei's trying to grasp onto any type of power left to grab onto. She doesn't like the idea that Baelish is powerful at this point, but he is Lord of the Eyrie. He's acting Lord of the Eyrie right now. So that's important. And we know how strong the Knights of the Vale are because of an earlier conversation with Bolton and Littlefinger about when the North and the South rose together, they took down the greatest dynasty the world has ever known. So I think Cersei, while she's stupid, I think she's also smart enough to know this, that the veil is a key component in success or failure when it comes to war.
It's a great point. And also the veil is the only army in Westeros, basically, that has been completely unaffected by the War of Five Kings.
Because no one can get up there.
Yeah, at least, outside of Dorne, which hasn't really been involved.
Yeah. So I like also where Baelish says, I know how hard it could be to lose both of your parents at such a young age. And I was curious, being that I'm still reading the books, do we know when and how his parents died?
I don't remember, actually. I'm not sure.
Okay. I was just curious. If any of our listeners know that, I would love to hear more about his childhood at the Fingers and how his parents died. And I'm sure that's what prompted him to go live with the Tullys. Maybe, yeah. So Baelish continues to, massage Cersei's confidence in their relationship. Young Robin heeds my advice, and I have always counseled loyalty to the throne. And I find this really, really interesting because he goes into talking about finding Sansa alive and well and home again back in Winterfell.
Yeah, how crazy is that? It's like so unbelievably brazen considering he was the one who whisked her away from King's Landing.
Yeah, and Cersei's like, what the fuck? Like, that's not possible. And he goes, my sources are well placed. Like, I was just there.
Yeah, exactly. My sources are well placed. And Cersei's saying, that's not possible. It reminded me of Luke Skywalker in episode 5 when Darth Vader reveals, no, I am your father. And he's like, no, that's impossible.
But so we see Baelish is showing the viewer his hand right here because he's playing both sides. He has Sansa in Winterfell safe, so he played the Lannisters to get her up there. He's going to marry her to the Boltons. He's confident that Stannis is going to crush the Boltons or vice versa. It doesn't really matter.
And then he's going to come through and just like take out all the rest of the pins that haven't fallen.
Yeah. The veil is already going to be up there. So that brings me to another point a little bit later here. But it's also unveiled to us that if he does this for Cersei, helps, pick off the winner of that battle. Mm-hmm. Name him Warden of the North.
Right. And watching it this time through, I had forgotten that she basically throws that out there as, something from to strive towards. But I could tell with his angling through the earlier part of the conversation, that he was planning on offering his services to go and take out, like he suggested having Cersei and her army ride north. And we know from Roos's conversation with Ramsay a couple episodes ago that the army from King's Landing has never come up this far north, So that was out of the question. Littlefinger threw that idea out there so that then he could say, well, I happen to be in a more convenient place to ride on Winterfell and take out the stragglers from the Battle of the Bastards, or the battle between Stannis and the Boltons. So he was setting himself up to secure the place as the most the strongest military power in the north and set himself up to be warden of the north, basically. And then
take Sansa as his wife.
Yeah, exactly. And then after making the offer, Cersei falls for the trap perfectly. And she's like, well, if you do that, I'll make you warden of the north. And he's like, yes, that was my plan all along,
Yeah, because just to kind of continue unraveling his plot, he's been advancing on not on Cersei. Ooh, that's creepy. On Sansa, kissing her, telling her stories about her family.
Yep.
Unveiling his cards to her about his awkward love for her in different ways, and that she won't be married to Ramsay very long.
Yep.
And so he's positioning himself to take over that relationship and solidify his hold on the north, which is why the Boltons want to marry Ramsay to Sansa in the first place.
Combining the powers of the Vale and Winterfell into one galvanized military unit.
Yeah, under him, which we know from his conversation with the Boltons, or with Roose at least, like that was what took down the Targaryens, and he would be in control of both.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
so
amazing.
on top of that,
great analysis.
On top of that, I was thinking, well, we think when the Battle of the Bastards comes that Baelish rides north for Sansa, but his plan was already to ride north to begin with.
Right, that's true. He was going to try to take out whoever won at the Battle of the Bastards.
So did he really go for her, or did he go because he was going anyways?
That's a great point. He probably went because he was going to go anyway, try to take out Stannis, which was who he assumed was going to win, but he was surprised by finding Jon Snow's army there, basically.
Yeah, so he had to change his story.
Yeah, totally.
And decide that, I'm sure Sansa did send him a letter, but whether he went for her or not, I'm sure part of him went for her, but this was already... It was
already in the works. It just didn't have to fight this time.
It was already there.
And there's the new obstacle of Jon Snow, basically, which he has to size up and see what he needs to do.
Exactly.
Because that was a wild card. Nobody was expecting Jon Snow to be killed and come back to life and have his vow to the Night's Watch be fulfilled, essentially, because he's free from the Night's Watch at this point. Nobody saw that coming. Definitely not Baelish.
Yeah, and so we get another kind of crazy moment with Cersei in this too, where she's like, I'm gonna skin him and his bastard like that wretch on his bloody sigil.
Yeah, I love that part.
And Baelish is like, I would, counsel patience. And, Cersei is just showing that she's crazy again. And then we do get into the conversation of like, well, why doesn't Uncle Kevin, do it? Why doesn't the Lannister army go up there and kick some Bolton ass? And Cersei's like, my Uncle Kevin has the courage of a kitchen mouse.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty funny.
Jaime, then. Jaime is away on a sensitive diplomatic mission. I have no idea when he'll be back. And I feel like when she says that, she's almost thinking like he's not going to make it back, period.
Yeah, because that's true. She was like sick of him. Maybe she wants him to get killed or something.
I don't know if that's it, or she is really nervous about him going down there with one hand.
Oh, yeah, maybe that too.
Because she made that point too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, Baelish is setting up all this chaos. He's such a slippery bastard, man, and he's definitely doing what he does best in this scene, just sowing chaos, playing both sides against each other, and setting himself up to be in the good graces of whoever comes out on top in the end.
Exactly. He's so smart. Like...
he's in with Bolton. He's in with Cersei.
He's in with
wins.
Sansa.
Yeah.
I mean, Sansa, for lack of a better term, trusts him at this point. I think she's wary of him, but to this point,
to
this very episode, Baelish has never put her in harm's way.
Yep. Yeah. Until not intentionally, at least.
Not intentionally, and I still don't think him marrying her to Roose, or not to Roose, but to Ramsay was intentional for her to get
sort of an accident.
Yeah, to get.
Although he did put that poison on her and put her in a position to potentially be arrested in King's Landing.
That's true. I think he knew though that Olenna. I think he was so confident in that he wasn't worried about her danger there. I
just thought of something cool about this scene. His idea, which he divulges to Cersei about letting Stannis and Roose battle it out and letting the enemies of the throne slaughter each other, and then when they're done, seizing Winterfell from whichever thief survives. This is sort of a microcosm of his modus operandi in general. He turns people against each other, like right off the bat from the first episode. He sets House Stark against the Lannisters, right? Basically results in House Stark being eliminated. Now he's just, this is what he does. He sets other people against each other while remaining in the good graces of both sides, letting his enemies wipe each other out, and then coming in and finishing off the weak ones himself if he has to, or just setting up another house to do it.
This is how he's probably climbed this ladder his entire life.
Yeah, so it's a pretty valid tactic. But here is like I don't know if people have pointed it out before, but this is him basically divulging his central strategy to Cersei, we should let them take each other out and, come in and seize Winterfell from whoever
the stragglers.
wins. The stragglers. Yeah, this is what he does. It's so cool.
It's honestly, it's worked for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think his blindness with Sansa just comes from that awkward feeling of daughter / woman he loves type of love for her. And it's confusing. And she uses it to her advantage, which is, his undoing, which
Totally.
I can't wait for that episode.
Oh, yeah. It's always fun.
I love that episode. Yeah. So he says, name me Warden of the North. I will not rest until the lion flies over Winterfell. And Cersei goes, and I'll know when you're a man of your word when I see Sansa Stark's head on a spike.
Right. As I said, I live to serve. You think he would do it, or does he love Sansa? How far will he go for power? Does he have any loyalty whatsoever to anything or anyone?
I think he loves Sansa, but I think he would do it. Depending on which situation he was in.
Yeah, probably. Nothing comes before Baelish.
Yeah, if he was in a situation to keep Sansa alive and still win the situation, I think he would. Mm-hmm. But if he was left no choice, I think he would kill her.
Totally. Oh, Cersei in this scene basically says winter is coming. Also, just she changes the words a little bit. She's like, Winterfell is 1,000 miles away from here, and the weather has already begun to turn. And winter is coming, basically.
Yes, it is.
It's funny. I just thought that was kind of a cool little...
Yeah. No, I didn't even catch that. That's great. Love it.
Totally.
Yeah. So what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Jorah learning of his father's fate.
Oh, yeah. That's sad.
Really sad moment, but also an important moment, It's a character that we care about, Jorah, learning an important truth and a development of his family, which it's a good scene too. It starts off with him reminding the viewers that he has grayscale by looking at his little patch on his arm. And Tyrion's all mad because they were supposed to find a village by this point.
Where are all these fucking villages you were talking about?
And he's like, what the fuck? And he's like, you're an awful traveling companion. Do you know that? Possibly the least charming man I've ever met. And it's become quite apparent. It's quite apparent that things have deteriorated slightly between these two since the last time we saw them. Because last time we saw them, they're getting along pretty well, sharing poetry and.
I think Jorah's distancing himself because of his grayscale. Oh
yeah, for sure, definitely. So Jorah's like, "Do you ever shut up?" Oh, and Tyrion, there's another funny line in there too. I'm not your traveling companion, he says. And Tyrion's like, we're traveling together in each other's company. Therefore,
Do you ever shut up?
Yeah. And this is a pretty impressive feat that Tyrion managed to accomplish. I sailed from King's Landing to Pentos in a crate without ever saying a word. That's pretty crazy.
Which must have been so hard for him.
Right. And Jorah had no idea, apparently, about any of this. We learned that he is not connected with the news of the Seven Kingdoms. He's like, why? Tyrion's like, really? You never thought to ask what I was doing in a brothel in Volantis? Like, I'm just, hanging out there for no reason.
A Lannister in Essos?
Yeah. So Jorah's surprised by this revelation from Tyrion, and Tyrion is surprised that Jorah never thought about what he was doing there, which is just kind of funny. They're both really surprised. And Tyrion tells him, I killed my father. He wanted to execute me for a crime I didn't commit. Plus, he was fucking the woman that I loved. And Jorah stands up, and it's like, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, like, what is going on here? And Tyrion says, as miserable as you are, Mormont, at least your father was a good man. And he uses past tense, was a good man.
Yeah.
Interestingly. So Jorah's like, what do you know about my father?
I met him at the wall.
Yeah. He tells him about how he got to meet him and how he knew all the stories about every one of his men. And he really seemed to care about the people in his command. And Jorah's, smiling like, yep, sounds about right. And he finishes off. But again, it was past tense. He cared about the people in his command. And he's like, how do they put it in the watch? We shall never see his like again. And Jorah's like, just looks completely
you
fucking...
can see the pain on his face. Ian Glenn does such a great job here.
Really, really good job.
The unspoken pain on his face.
Yeah, he's like clenching his teeth and like
trying not to cry.
Yeah, and Tyrion realizes, oh, you didn't know, I'm sorry, I am. And Jorah asks him how it happened, and he's like, well, I only know what I heard. He's like, how? Like, fucking tell me, man, like, what the hell? And he tells him, that he was leading an expedition beyond the wall, which is super hardcore considering Jorah's age. He's a pretty old guy,
Because
really
Jorah's close
hardcore.
to 60, we discover.
Jorah, right?
His dad had to be,
really old, and like the North is super harsh, right? So I mean, true. It is true that Bear Island is just about as north as you get, like parallel to the wall, practically to the west. But still, it's super badass. Jorah Mormont is a beast. So he tells him, there was a mutiny and he was murdered by his own men. And Jorah looks pretty shocked by this. He seems to be, by the facial expression, struggling to grasp it at all at first, before, after a few seconds, nodding his head in acceptance. And he's just like, he's like, I can't deal with this. We got to keep moving, man. Just walks off, and Tyrion gets up after him and follows. And it's, Tyrion looks pretty upset here too. So you can tell he feels bad for him.
Yeah, and that's not a good way to find out. It was just like sprung on him versus like, dude, you need to sit down. There's something I got to tell you.
Yeah, and you can tell that underneath like all the anger on the exterior between these two, that they sort of care about each other. They feel some sort of kinship.
They have a mutual respect for each other.
Yeah, totally. So that's it for my number 3.
Okay.
How about your numero dos?
My numero dos is Loras's trial.
Perfect. Mine is the arrest of the queen. So
fabulous. So let's collaborate.
Yes.
So we start out in the room that the High Sparrow starts. You are aware of the rumors concerning you and Renly.
And Loras is like, psh, I don't pay attention to rumors.
Yeah, I don't pay attention to rumors. You were said to be despondent when he died. Witnesses said that you refused to leave his bedside, even as Stannis' army closed in.
We actually got to see that when it happened, right? They were trying to like, pull
and you know
away.
who was there? Littlefinger.
Oh yeah, Littlefinger, right?
And Littlefinger's back in the capital.
So he probably told Cersei.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Good catch.
So I thought that was interesting. And to Loras's, defense, he was my friend and he was my king. I was sad. And was he a part of Renly's Kingsguard?
Yeah,
I think he
believe
was.
Yeah, he totally was.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. So, I mean, his place would be by his king.
Right.
And it was the same sentiment that even Brienne, when Renly died, she was like, I won't leave him. Like, that's the whole point of the fucking Kingsguard. Like, why would I leave him, even if he's dead?
Right. You want people that are loyal to a fault.
Yeah.
To where it's like problematic for their own health.
Yeah, and it's almost kind of like, in a way, an odd mirror to the Dothraki Blood Riders, because if their Khal dies, don't they die too? Or is that in the books? I think that's in the books, not in the show.
To quote a wiki of Ice and Fire, citing A Game of Thrones chapter 36, Daenerys 4, ancient traditions proclaim that when a Khal dies, his Blood Riders die with him. Should the Khal die in battle, the Blood Riders live only long enough to avenge him. Once done, the last service the Blood Riders must perform is to escort the Khaleesi to Vaes Dothrak to join the Dosh Khaleen, and then they are to join their Khal in death. So, they all ride into the Nightlands together for sure. It's that sort of like the old, wasn't it when the Egyptian pharaohs died, they would kill their servants with them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they had people to serve them in the afterlife.
Right, yeah, same type of thing, I guess, with the Nightlands, it sort of seems like.
And so Loras goes on here and he goes, or the Sparrow goes, Joffrey was your king and he was anointed by the seven. And Loras was good here. He goes, I was wrong. I know that.
Yep.
But I was forgiven by Joffrey because I fought for him at the Battle of the Blackwater.
Wearing Renly's armor.
Like, what the fuck does that matter what I wore?
Right.
Who fucking cares what I wore? Like, this has nothing to do with me having sex with men. Especially when we know that Olivar is looming.
Right. Attacking his character instead of presenting evidence.
Like, this has really nothing to do with it. I guess it's the best evidence the Sparrow has against his relations with Renly.
Right. Circumstantial.
To show that it's
shit.
more than one man. But so they go on, do you deny all the charges against you? Fornication, buggery, blasphemy? Of course I deny them. You never lay with Renly Baratheon? Never. And that's a straight up lie.
Yeah, categorically denies it.
And to a fault, I think these high lords and ladies kind of think that they can get away with this game because they get away with it themselves politically, but we've introduced religion
right
to this game and they play a different game.
A non-compromising leader.
Yeah. And so the Sparrow goes okay, so no one else? Never. Okay, well, that will be all, Sir Loras. And Olenna is disgusted. They all are. Like, Marjorie is disgusted. I think even Tommen looked a little disgusted. Like, this is weird.
Ugh,
what are we doing here? I'm trying to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, this whole scene is so frustrating. None of this should be happening. Tommen is such a limp noodle. Just like, it's the worst. It's so bad. They shouldn't even be there.
I think he has no clue what's going on.
Yeah, there's only two Kingsguard in there, and they're completely surrounded by armed sparrows. What the hell is he thinking?
I don't think he is thinking. I don't think he has a clue of what any of this means because he's so young and so sheltered. Like, he's not reading between the lines of how dangerous the situation is.
Yeah, quite possibly.
So Olenna jumps up and she goes, well, I think that's quite enough of that. And the Sparrow goes, the faith calls Queen Marjorie forward. Marjorie's like, what?
You're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, so I'll let you take it from here because I know this is your number 2.
Oh,
so
all right, cool.
Yeah, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, so Marjorie's like, you're calling me? He's like, yeah, the faith has some questions for you. She's like, but I'm the fucking queen, And he's like, yeah, but according to the law of the seven, neither kings nor queens are exempt from testimony at a holy inquest. And this is when she glances over at Tommen and Cersei, and they're both grilling at her like, just do it,
Yeah.
And I'd be like, fuck that. Hell no. Tommen is such a bitch, man. None of this should be happening.
He should have stood up and been like, no.
No, this is outside of the scope of the arranged, testimony hearing, basically.
And I'm the king, and while I know that I'm subject to religion too, we need to have a conversation about how to proceed. She's not going up there until we have a conversation, dear
not
Sparrow.
Without a lawyer present.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's so fucked up. So Olenna kind of reluctantly sits back down, and Marjorie walks over to the stand, and she's asked basically how she responds to the charges, and she's like, they're fucking lies, and she confirms that a couple times.
As far as I know,
Right, yeah. In the presence of gods, do you swear that your brother is innocent of these charges against him to the best of your knowledge? And she's like, yeah, it's all bullshit.
Sure, why not? Yeah. Yes, I do. He's my brother. Of course I'm going to stand up against you fuckers.
Totally. And so that's when he's like, oh, well, thank you, Grace. You can take a seat again. So she goes over and walks away. And that's when the door opens and Olivar gets brought in. And Loras looks fucking bugged out.
He's like, fuck.
Yeah, he's like, oh, shit. And he kind of shares a glance with Olenna where she was like, oh, fuck. And Cersei is smiling. And
she's smirking.
Yeah, and in the background I noticed that there's one of the sparrows is holding that 4-pointed hammer thing that's used later on when they try to attack the mountain. When he's in the Kingsguard, and it boom, punctures into his breastplate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
so I
funny.
noticed that one of the sparrows is holding that, and I'm like, where the fuck are all the Kingsguard? There should be way
There
more.
should be like way more. You have the king and the queen mother, and the queen's grandmother, and the heir to Highgarden all in one room.
Yeah, and isn't Loras a Kingsguard too?
He is not.
Wasn't he nominated Kingsguard?
I feel like he's not a Kingsguard. I think he was a Kingsguard to Renly, and then he was forgiven by Joffrey because.
Oh, all right. Yeah, you're right. I'm confusing the books and the show.
Okay, so he was a Kingsguard in the book.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. No, at least we cleared it, you know.
Yeah, totally. So, I'm just like, where the fuck are all these Kingsguard? You know, there should be a lot of people here protecting all these high-level individuals, and they're just surrounded by sparrows everywhere. I'm like, Tommen is the dumbest king ever. Like,
But so, in a way, so is Cersei for letting her son be there unguarded.
Right, she's so stupid.
She's putting all of her eggs in one basket with the High Sparrow.
Totally. So they bring out Olivar, and the Sparrow's like, High Sparrow, you know this man? Oh, yes, he's Lord Tyrell, heir to Highgarden. And he says that he was his squire, and that they engaged in intimate relations, and all of this. And Loras freaks out. He's like, liar, you know, he's a liar. That's bullshit. And he asks if there's anybody else who can support Olivar's claim. And he's like, yeah, you know, Queen Marjorie was a witness. She knows all about it. And she says, yeah, she walked in on us once not long ago and didn't seem surprised. And from a legal perspective to me, I'm like, this is hearsay. You know, there's no proof. It's all just like testimony.
Well, even Cersei pipes in, which I found so funny. She goes, why should we believe a squire over the queen's brother?
Right. And yeah, over the heir to Highgarden.
Or the heir to Highgarden, that's right.
Yeah. And Olivar, this is all like planned out already, basically. Olivar is like, well, he has a birthmark, your grace. Quite high on his thigh, wine-colored and roughly the shape of Dorne.
And I think this is still hearsay
Exactly.
because
It's so, like,
if he's squiring for Sir Loras, he's probably going to see him naked.
Yeah, like a
he has
bunch.
to help him with his armor, and that would not be a far fetch for him to see a birthmark on his thigh if he's squiring for somebody.
Yeah, totally. This is total nonsense. And Tommen should have known that, but he's clueless. And
Tommen has no clue.
yeah, Loras fucking freaks out at this point, and he like runs across the room at very high speed.
He
at Olivar.
lunges.
Yeah, like the actor is like really fast in this scene.
Yeah, he totally was.
Sprinting.
I noted that as well, how quickly he flew at him.
Yeah, and he's just intercepted by sparrows all over the place, and basically Olenna's like, this is it, you know, we're out of here, and gets up, and they try to walk out, and the sparrows block them.
She's like, get out of my way.
And the High Sparrow makes the announcement that the Faith is satisfied that there is enough evidence to bring a formal trial for Sir Loras and Queen Marjorie.
Dun, dun, dun.
And Marjorie's like, what? And since Olivar's testimony contradicts Queen Marjorie's testimony of not knowing, they're going to take her into custody and try her as well for bearing false witness before the gods, which is apparently as grave a sin as any. So they order her to be taken into custody. And again, why would you take the word of some brothel keeper's pet, some brothel working squire over the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms? Like, you know what I mean? Like this is ridiculous.
It's another sham trial, essentially. Courtesy of Cersei.
Right. Yeah, totally. So the Faith grabs her and starts dragging her out, and she's like, Tommen, you know, and
he's like, what do I do?
Yeah, and he looks around the room, unsure, and this is when he realizes it's only now, way too late, that he realizes that he's completely surrounded and outnumbered. He looks at his Kingsguard, then sees the sparrows everywhere with all these pointy weapons and shit, and he orders with a hand signal the Kingsguard to stand down. And it's the fucking worst, man. Tommen is the biggest bitch of a king ever. I fucking hate Tommen. Like, we all thought we would like Tommen, you know, and no, he's
I like him from
terrible.
like, he's a nice kid perspective, but he's a horrible king.
Terrible king. And he gets totally bitch made here, too.
Bitch made, motherfucker.
Bitch made, motherfucker.
Bitch made.
So then Marjorie is losing her shit as she's being dragged away, and Cersei's trap has been a marvelous success thus far, you know, obviously. And
she's smirking.
Yeah, Marjorie's just screaming as she gets dragged out, and Olenna glares at Cersei like, "You fucking bitch!" And Cersei's just like, "I told you, House Lannister has no rival." Just like, yeah, this was me, bitch. Like, looking right at her, you know. And I'm just like, this is fucking ridiculous. This whole thing is just like unbelievable. Cersei is the worst.
She is the worst of the worst.
It's going to be hilarious to watch this all get turned back around on her coming up pretty quick, you know?
I hope so.
Yeah, totally. Speaking of which, it's probably her duplicity here, first narking out Loras and then complaining about the process to sort of save face in front of the Queen of Thorns and everything, that puts her on the High Sparrow's radar. I bet he noticed her two-facedness and probably thinks she's scum, making it easy for him to believe Lancel's claims about Cersei. So yeah, that's it for my number 2. How about your number 1?
Okay, so my number 1 is the intimidation of Miranda and the actual wedding.
Nice. Yeah, mine is the marriage too, so we can I'll maybe throw in a few words there.
How about I'll go through the scene of Sansa and Miranda, and then you can take the wedding, because mine was kind of a combo of both.
Sure, yeah, we'll see what happens.
So we hear a knock at Sansa's door. It's probably in the morning, if I'm not mistaken. And Sansa opens the door and goes, "What do you want?" And Miranda says, "Lord Ramsay sent me to draw your bath, my lady. You want to be clean and fresh for your new husband, don't you?" And
she sounded a lot like Baelish there, a similar accent. Did you notice that?
Yeah, like creepy.
Totally.
And so I think this again is hinting to Sansa that Ramsay's crazy.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
She's getting glimpses, and I think, you know, after what Miranda did with Theon, like sending her over to Theon, she knows that somehow Miranda is connected to Ramsay.
Yeah, and that something's not right.
And so she's sitting there washing her hair, and it's actually a beautiful scene. Like, they have the fire going, they have that big tub.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's dim in there, and like the fire is kind of flickering on the stone walls, and it's really, I like it. You know, it's just I love all the Winterfell rooms. They're so creepy and ominous
and beautiful.
And beautiful at the same time. So Miranda goes, "You're so beautiful, but you need to keep him happy. Ramsay gets bored easily. You don't want to end up like the others." And Sansa's
what
like,
others?
Fucking what?
Yeah, like what the fuck are you talking about?
That's really creepy, you know, like to say that. And
she's like, I shouldn't gossip, you know, but really she wants to talk about it, because as soon as Sansa asks again, what others, she answers so fast. Yeah.
There was Kira, the blacksmith's daughter. Then there was Violet. She got pregnant, and well, that was boring. And then there was Tansy, and she got her face ripped off by a pack of dogs.
Yeah, basically. Ramsay let me come with him on that hunt.
That was creepy. And Sansa's like, hunt? So Sansa at this point is figuring it out. Like, this girl loves Ramsay.
Yeah, totally.
And, you know, Sansa goes, "What's your name again?" She goes, "Miranda." And she turns around and goes, "How long have you loved him, Miranda?"
Yep, and she just goes silent. And I'm like, damn, Sansa's on point. She's like Hannibal Lecter in her own right.
Did you imagine that he would be with you forever? Is that it? Then I came along and ruined it.
And this is the best line here.
"I am Sansa Stark of Winterfell, This is my home and you can't frighten me.
So epic. She just like puts her in her place there.
Oh, I love it. Even though she's probably like freaking out.
Yeah.
Which we see because when Miranda leaves, like, she's like, do you want me to
Looks a
finish?
little nervous.
You know, do you want me to finish your bath? Sansa's like, no, I can finish on my own. Get the fuck out of here. And when she closes the door, though, Sansa puts her hands up to her face. Like, what the fuck?
Yep. This is not good.
This is not a good situation.
Yeah, totally. Pretty crazy.
And so I have to be like creepy Bran here and say that the wedding was really beautiful.
Yeah, like if it didn't end so horribly.
I know.
It's such a beautiful ceremony.
Like I'm trying to separate it. I'm separating it for the rewatch of what comes after. And I'm just taking that scene for face value of how beautiful the set was. Mm-hmm. The tree, the snow falling.
The godswood.
Oh my God.
The colors.
Sansa looked gorgeous. And it was so beautiful. It was like wool and with like the fur shawl and the buttons and the train. Oh my God. I loved it. I loved her dress.
Yeah.
And her hair was done up like the Northern girls.
Yep. Washed it so it's red again now.
Yes. Loved that. So I will let you take it from here because this is when we actually start the wedding, which I know is your number one.
All right. So Theon basically shows up to, or Reek shows up to Sansa's room and tells her, "I've come to escort you to the godswood, milady." And I thought it was interesting. It sounded like he said milady, which is what you would say if you were a low-born peasant.
Oh, yeah.
So he knows,
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, he knows that he should be saying my lady. So I'm wondering if this is part of his brainwashing by Ramsay, who's like made him talk like a commoner as part of his transformation into Reek.
Maybe.
Or if it was a script slip up where he just, said milady.
Or he's mumbling because he's nervous.
Yeah, but if it's intentional, it's a great detail. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Completely. Let's go with that.
Yeah, totally. So he asks her, "Will you take my arm?" And she's like, fuck no, I'm not touching you.
No.
Disgusting Reek. You traitor son of a bitch.
Although he does look washed.
Yeah, he maybe is. Yeah.
His hair is down and it's clean and versus like it's not in his face. It's gelled back for intensive purposes.
Westerosi gel. I don't even want to know what that's made of.
I don't want to know what that is, but
it's hair gel.
We'll just go with water.
Yeah. So he's like, "Please take my arm. He'll punish me. He told me to take your arm. He'll know." And she's like, "I don't care what happens to you or what he does to you. So deal with it." And just walks out. It's fucking brutal. So then we get to the godswood. And like you were saying, it's beautiful out there. It's snowing.
The lanterns leading.
Yeah, the lanterns. Love that shit.
Oh, my God. I loved it. And everyone looks so pretty with like the snow in their hair.
Yep. Sansa looks a little nervous, understandably.
She looks nervous, but she looks beautiful. Oh my God.
And there's something about like the ceremony, which is kind of cool too, like the wording of the questions and the way they do it. It's overshadowed by like creepiness because of Ramsay and everything like that. But under different circumstances, it's pretty cool. Like seems like pretty cool traditions and stuff,
I just tried to separate the physical wedding scene from the rape scene.
Right.
And look at it from a first-time viewer perspective, not knowing what happens afterwards.
Yeah. So there's a couple moments worth mentioning as they're going back and forth with the procedure. Ramsay announces himself and says that he is Ramsay of House Bolton, heir to the Dreadfort and Winterfell. And when he says he's heir to Winterfell, Sansa looks mad as fuck. Did you notice that?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
So pissed.
Her nostrils flare.
Yeah. There's also a really cool camera shot where it's kind of like a wide angle view and you see the frozen pond and the tree where Ned was sitting polishing ice in the pilot episode. So that's kind of cool too.
And you see Miranda in the background all jealous.
Yeah, super mad. And Ramsay's like he's smiling at his own machinations when he's like, and who gives the bride? You know, and like looks at Reek and like, like I'm pulling all the strings. And he must have ordered Reek to pretend to be Theon for the purposes of the wedding too, because instead of saying, I'm Reek, you know, he's like, Theon of House Greyjoy, who was her father's ward. You know, he's like struggling with his programming. And yeah. So then Roose asks, Lady Sansa, will you take this man? And we get sort of a glance around at everybody, and Ramsay like does this thing with his eyebrows, like beckoning her.
Like, are you going to say yes?
Yeah, beckoning her with his eyebrows, and Miranda's fuming, and Fat Waldo's just like, you know, like kind of like blank. And Sansa steps forward and agrees, basically. And at this point, Ramsay's face turns into evil Frodo with his devilishly disturbing grin.
I got you now.
Yeah, super disturbing. And then it cuts to Ramsay's chambers. And first he starts off really nice, like, are you pleased, my lady? And she's nodding, and good, I want you to be happy. And he's just such a lying son of a bitch. And then it transitions to the bazaar, or starts going downhill as he's acting like a freak. And he's like, my father says you're still a virgin. Yeah. Why? Why are you still a virgin? Afraid of dwarves?
And I hate this part because she goes, Lord Tyrion was kind. He was gentle. He never touched me.
Yeah.
Like, please don't.
Yeah.
Be. It was almost like a plea.
Unlike Ramsay, yeah. Yeah, totally.
You're not lying to me. And she's like, no, my lord.
Lying to your husband on his wedding night, that could be a very bad way to start a marriage. We are man and wife now. We should be honest with each other. Don't you think?
She's like, yes, we should.
And he kisses her, and then as he's pulling his head back, his eyes get like all bugged out for a split second in a moment of mania before he pulls himself together again and orders her to strip, basically.
Take off your clothes.
Yeah, and Theon starts to leave, but he's like, oh, no. You stay here, Reek. You watch.
And Sansa's face is like, what?
Yeah, like, what the fuck? Like, that is totally
like,
out
her
of
mouth
left
is
field.
kind of open, and she's like,
yeah.
What is happening?
And he's like, do I need to ask a second time, you know, to Sansa about taking off her clothes? I hate asking a second time. Super fucked up again. Such a scumbag. And at this point, Sansa begins to look kind of terrified.
She knows.
Yeah, she knows, like, this is not going to be good at all. And she starts to kind of continue to take off her beautiful dress, but it's not fast enough for Ramsay, who comes to rip it apart. And he makes sure to tell Reek that he's watching again. You know, another creepy line.
I told you to reek.
Yeah.
Or to look, not to reek. I told you to reek.
You're rather ripe today, Reek. So he says, you've known Sansa since she was a girl. Now watch her become a woman. You know, that's creepy enough. And much like the death of the Red Viper, this scene is almost made more intense by allowing the viewer's imagination to take hold. And it only shows Reek's horrified reaction to the awful, you know, abuse that's going on. But you can hear the sounds in the background of Sansa whimpering and crying. And it just never gets any easier to watch. It's really fucked up. And Alfie Allen...
For the rewatch, for sure, on this one.
And Alfie Allen just puts on an incredible performance as tears pour down his face, and he's just seizing his whole like body, and his face is just contorting as he's forced to witness the horror of what's happening.
It's almost like he's being raped with her.
Yeah,
is how
totally.
I felt.
Yeah, and man, it's if you think this is bad, it's worse in the books. I'm just gonna tell you.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
God.
I'll say this. Reek is made to do more than just watch in the books.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
And yeah. So enjoy that when you get to that part of the books, I guess.
Oh, my God. I don't know about that.
It's fucked up. So
I might skip over that.
Well, never skip anything because there's always little clues hidden in places. You know,
I know,
it
but
sucks,
like,
but just gotta power through it.
It's so hard.
Yeah,
it's so sad because Sansa's such like the image of virtue and
right
immaturity and like childlike behavior, and to finally see that kind of stripped away from her physically and not just mentally anymore. It was really, really difficult.
Really super rough.
I remember watching that one with my husband too, and he was like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it just gets worse from here for her as she's basically locked in her chamber and continuously beaten and raped for an unknown amount of time. She's basically a
sex toy.
Yeah, until escaping with, at that point, Theon, basically, when he sort of snaps out of Reek. But do you think that at some point throughout this whole period of trauma that Ramsay gets her pregnant?
She very well could be.
Because remember, there's that one line when she's talking to Littlefinger about how Ramsay did all this stuff to her, and she's like, I still feel what he did to me, like inside, and she could be talking about feeling pregnant.
She could be.
I mean, among other, potential side effects of things that could have been done. I felt like there's been various hints that she's pregnant.
Interesting. I feel like, trying to remember, I was showing pretty big time when I started really feeling Justin move around. Like, it wasn't just like gas bubbles. It was like physical, like movement.
Right.
Like I could feel him roll or like shift from side to side. And I was fairly pregnant at that point. Like people knew like noticed that I was pregnant. Right. And she's under all those big clothes. So it could be, that absolutely could be. I thought about that too.
A new bastard of Winterfell.
Oh God.
Yeah. Oh no, it wouldn't be a bastard though. Technically it would be a Bolton.
He would be a Bolton.
Ooh. God, that's even worse.
That's worse.
Ugh. Yeah. So that pretty much wraps up the episode. It ends on Alfie Allen's brilliant performance, shaking and quivering and crying and super hard to watch. And it's just, the horrifying sounds in the background of what's happening and brutal end to the episode. I'm glad we still have some more notes to talk about, so we're not ending on this note.
Me too. That's why I made sure to put it in my top 5.
Yeah, same here.
Because I didn't want it to be the last thing.
Yeah, so let's move on to notes.
So my first note that I have is going back to Tyrion and Jorah.
Yeah, I love this
walking
scene
through the countryside, talking about Dany and why she's worth all this.
Mm-hmm.
So Jorah continues, do you believe in anything?
Right. Well, Tyrion's trying to get a grasp of like what the hell's going on, because the Mormonts fought against the Targaryens, right? So he's like, why are you loyal to Dany? Like, this doesn't make any sense.
This goes against like what your house was for.
Right.
And so Jorah goes, do you believe in anything? And Tyrion goes, I believe in many things. In something greater than ourselves, I mean. The gods, destiny, do you believe that there's a plan for this world?
No.
Neither.
He's a nihilist, kind of.
Yeah.
Or not necessarily a nihilist, but he doesn't believe that there's any, like, great plan or grand design.
There's no fate, basically.
Right.
And again, Jorah and Tyrion connect here, because Jorah goes, neither did I. I was a cynic, just like you. Then I saw a girl step into a great fire with 3 stone eggs. When the fire burned out, I thought I'd find her blackened bones. Instead, I found her, Daenerys, alive and unhurt, holding her baby dragons.
Oh my God. I get goosebumps every time.
Yeah. Have you ever heard baby dragons singing? Tyrion's like, no. He goes, it's hard to be a cynic after that. And I loved that. Oh my God.
Totally. And there's like a little moment where he's like alive and unhurt, holding her baby dragons, and it cuts to Tyrion's face and he just looks totally blown away. And it sort of makes me think of how at the beginning of the story, he's sort of making japes about when they're heading to the wall about the
Grumpkins
snarks and grumpkins. Yeah. But now he knows that dragons exist, and he's sort of questioning his own natural doubts about things. Like a few seasons ago, He may have been like, yeah, sure. How about this whole story?
But he's actually seen Drogon,
Right.
so he knows that they're real.
Yeah, so dragons are alive. Maybe it's possible that Daenerys is unburnt, because that's the part of the story that he's like
skeptical about.
Yeah, I would imagine so, right?
Well, I would be.
Right. So yeah, it's just pretty crazy, this whole thing, and the idea of baby dragons singing. I remember so clearly at the end of the first season when she's got one of the dragons in her arms and one of them's on her shoulder and
one of them's up her leg.
Yeah, it's probably Drogon on her shoulder, and right at the last shot of the show, it's like sort of zooming out off the dragon on her shoulder, and he's like,
and he screeches.
Yeah.
And he spreads his wings.
Yep.
And he's all little and cute.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, I'd love this scene too. Really great speech by Jorah. His voice also is just so good, so it makes it even more intense. Just great.
I mean, he's talking about a life-changing moment for him.
Yeah,
like
totally.
It changed his whole perspective on everything,
on reality as a whole.
One moment in time.
Yeah, and so Tyrion, of course, so ever driven by logic, is like, that doesn't mean she's going to be a great queen.
Which is true.
Yeah, and Jorah's like, yeah, you're right, and he's like, the Targaryens are famously insane. What if she conquers the world? Then what? 1,000 years of peace and prosperity? And Jorah's like, well, first we got to conquer the world. So he's pretty confident in Daenerys and her her concept of justice. He's like, yeah, it would be a good place if she conquered the world.
Yeah, we wouldn't have all this like Littlefinger type activity.
So Tyrion's like, we? So because obviously
like,
Jorah's
aren't you
been
exiled?
banned. Yeah, exiled. So he's like, even like, what are you expecting? Like that you're gonna bring me and she's gonna be cool and like be so happy about it. She's gonna hack off my head, bring you back into the fold. Then you command her army and go just take over everything and win the Iron Throne. And it's a happy ending. Long live the queen. And yeah, it's pretty funny.
Which we know that's not how it's going to end. Right.
And he also brings up another good point. Like, she's never even like spent a day in Westeros of her adult life. Like, she's just going to show up out of nowhere and rule the Seven Kingdoms. That's what you consider justice.
That's a plan.
And I love Tyrion. He's so logic driven. He thinks for himself, questions authority. And I'm just like,
he's a critical thinker.
Yeah, totally. Think for yourself. Question authority. It's from a Tool song. Just like repeats over and over. It's awesome. And so Jorah, on the other hand, is like driven by, partially motivated at least by her justice, but also he's like, she's the rightful heir. That's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Totally.
So at that, a couple seconds later, that's when a slave ship shows up and they get busted by Malco, who is played by Adewale Akinnuoye-Agbaje. You know that guy?
Say that again?
Adewale Akinnuoye-Agbaje. Adewale Akinnuoye-Agbaje. He's you may know him from Lost, where he played Mr. Echo. Another great character.
Oh, okay. I did not watch Lost, but I heard it was good.
Yeah, really good. I recommend it. And this actor is fantastic too. He's in a lot of good stuff. So it's really cool seeing him on Game of Thrones. They take the two captive. They're gonna cut Tyrion's throat.
Damn.
And put Jorah in the salt mines or make him a galley slave. So they're like, cut his throat. We can sell his cock to a to a cock merchant because the dwarf's cock has magic powers. It sort of reminded me of that guy who said it's lucky to rub a dwarf's head. It's even luckier to suck a dwarf's cock, right? Because dwarf's cocks have magic powers, so that's why it's so lucky.
There we go.
And so Tyrion's begging for his life, obviously. He doesn't want to A, be killed, or B, lose his cock, right? So he's like, so how would the seller know that the cock came from a dwarf unless he sees the dwarf? And like, keep me alive, And one of the other guys is like, it will be a dwarf-sized cock.
Guess again.
Yes. I love that line by Tyrion. So funny. Guess again. Man, that's great.
That's awesome.
So Adewale Akinnuoye-Agbaje, aka Malco, he's like, the dwarf lives until we find a cock merchant. Just Just the idea
what
of
the fuck's a cock merchant?
Right? Yeah, like
when I grow up, I want to be a cock merchant.
Yeah, exactly. So just imagine being a cock merchant. It's hilarious, just that concept that people do that, or they could specialize in just selling cocks,
Dwarf ones.
That's what we
nonetheless.
do. Dwarf cocks, yeah.
Must be like for sorcery, like what they did with Varys, maybe.
Oh,
Varys's parts,
right? Or they got to be doing something with the rest of the bodies from all those dwarves that are being killed to give Cersei their heads, right? So maybe Cersei's got her own cock merchant.
Oh my god.
So Tyrion's thinking pretty quickly. After he finds out he's going to live, at least for now, he changes his strategy to try to save Jorah, or at least to get them to Meereen. Because somebody says something about Daenerys having opened the fighting pits. And he's like, oh, the fighting pits. Well, you're in luck. That guy's he's one of the best fighters in the Seven Kingdoms. But first, Malco kind of thinks that he's talking about himself, the dwarf, Tyrion, the dwarf.
Him.
He's like, no, him. And that's when, like you said, we find out that Jorah's like around 60 or so. And Tyrion has a great line. Sure, he's a bit long in the tooth, a bit withered, been in the sun too long. We can all see that. But he's a veteran of 100 battles. They wrote songs about him. Fucking
Did they
cracks
really
me up.
write songs about him?
No, Tyrion's just like, I mean, who knows? Maybe there's some song about one of his triumphant jousting tournaments or something. Because he is like a renowned warrior.
Well, when Malco says, is that true? Jorah like reluctantly nods his head, and I can't tell if he's reluctantly nodding his head because it's true and he's like humble about it, or because it's a lie and he's like,
I think it's a lie and he's like committing to the game,
the story. Okay.
Cuts to Tyrion and he's like, yes, he's going along with it.
You get it. You get what I'm doing.
Yeah, totally. Although he is, like you said, he is a famous warrior. He's won a lot of tournaments and stuff like that. The specific example that Tyrion gives, the tourney at Lannisport, unseating Sir Jaime Lannister himself. That one specifically is true. But,
I don't think that ever happened for some reason.
Winning tournaments, though, is how Jorah got his first wife, Lynesse Hightower.
Oh, okay. The one that left him because he didn't have enough money.
Yeah, so he was trying to win all these tournaments and stuff, and she was like, he won her with his valor at the tournaments, basically, and then she was like, oh, Bear Island sucks. Like, this is fucking rugged
it's cold up here.
Yeah. So he had to keep her occupied with money, and then, like, that whole thing happened.
Yeah.
Selling slaves to try to fund his wife operation.
His wife operation.
Yeah, So Malco's like, jousting. You're talking about jousting, a fancy game for fancy lads.
Hitting each other with sticks.
Yeah. So he's like, the men who fight in Meereen will swallow him whole. And that's when Jorah steps up again and starts playing into the story, and Tyrion's smile of excitement is as Jorah jumps in on the game of faces, which is what they're doing here, like lying about all this stuff. Basically, it's priceless. Although this line is not a lie. Jorah tells him, I killed a Dothraki blood rider in single combat. And Malco is like, whoa, he kind of jumps up like super surprised about that and gets in his face. He's like, liar. It's no lie. His name was Quotho. He was a blood rider to Khal Drogo. And he says, take me to Slaver's Bay, put a sword in my hand, and I'll prove my worth. And he is like, world-class fighter.
Yeah.
Like on Lisa Sky level.
Yeah, for sure. And do you think maybe Tyrion is thinking that is a lie? Because what they're talking about has been kind of like the game of faces, like lying.
Maybe.
So maybe he thinks it's a story, but in reality, it's true.
It's entirely possible. There's no way that Tyrion would know about that.
No, not at all.
Tyrion is like looking on, like exhilarated. He's like, at this point, he's like, yes, we have him. It's working. And I thought it was funny. Malco he looks at Jorah and like, then his angry face turns into a big smile. And it looked like when I do the Joker cosplay, I paint my teeth with this stuff called zombie rot. And it makes them all gross because the Joker's teeth are gnarly, in the Dark Knight. But after a few hours, it starts like peeling off. And it looked like they used that stuff on Adewale Akinnuagbaje's teeth here.
Oh, really?
Like little
how
patches
funny.
of the zombie rot tooth paint. I was like,
That's
I
funny.
recognize that. So yeah, that's it for that scene. What do you got next? Unless you want to add something.
The only thing I want to add is I loved it because they were able to, because these pirates were going to Volantis, and now they basically coerced them into going to Marine, which is where they wanted to go in the first place.
Yep. Yeah.
So now they have their boat. So now they're going to get there
Yeah,
faster.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So
Great.
that's the only other note I wanted to add for that scene.
Nice. All right. What do you got next?
The next note I have is Baelish and Lancel.
Right. Dude, it was
Brother
amazing
Lancel.
how fast Baelish realized it was Lancel, considering how drastically different he looks than season 1 or whatever the last time they were near each other.
Definitely. Were they ever even in proximity to each other?
I don't even know. I don't
In the
remember
show?
anything.
Like, I'm sure he knew who he was, but I don't think we ever see them
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So that's interesting too. Like,
Yeah.
this is the first time we see them together. So Brother Lancel goes, Lord Baelish. Baelish is like, yeah. Lancel Lannister. Brother Lancel now. We abandon our family names.
That's quite a family to abandon. And Littlefinger is totally surrounded here, like Tommen was surrounded before. It's a dangerous situation.
Oh yeah, and his eyes are darting all around. His little hands are folded, and
Yeah, his little his little fingers.
His little fingers are all folded, like holding each other, and his little eyes are darting all around, like, and you can just see it. He's trying to calculate how to get the hell out of there.
Totally.
So Lancel basically tells Baelish, like, it's way different here, bro. Like, we're in charge now. We're the Faith militant. Cersei fucked up, essentially. And they aren't going to let him pass because he's a brothel keeper, essentially.
Right.
And
He has to drop some names, basically, to get through.
I was just going to say, he has to, like, tell Brother Lancel, like, the Queen Mother is waiting for me. Like, should I send word that I'm going to be late?
Right. He's like, fine, you can go.
Yeah, step carefully, Lord Baelish.
There's little tolerance for flesh peddlers in the new King's Landing. We both peddle fantasies, Brother Lancel.
Yes.
Mine just happened to be entertaining.
That is such a funny line to me.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Pretty great.
It's a great little duel between those two.
There's a lot of little duels in this episode.
Yes, pairings.
Yeah. What's next? Trystane and Myrcella?
Yeah. Why don't you talk about this one?
Sure. So they're walking together through the garden, the water gardens, and Trystane he's in ladies' man mode, putting flowers in her hair and kissing her. And, yeah, and she's kind of like nervous, asking if she's only wants to marry her because of their arranged marriage and whatnot. And he's like, he doesn't like outright say that he loves her, but he's like, it's okay that we can make out and stuff because we're gonna be married, And she's like, how many other girls have you walked through these gardens? And it must be a few because he doesn't seem to want to give a direct answer. He changes the subject completely. I like the way your eyes go squinty when you're jealous. Diversion. She calls him out on it too. You didn't answer the question. And that's when we see Doran and Ario hanging out on the balcony, sort of watching them. And Doran's talking about how they look great together, but they're a Lannister and a Martell, and they have no idea how dangerous that is.
Yes, completely.
Which is pretty intense.
I love that line.
And Ario's like, yes, my prince. And Ario's cool, man. Too bad we don't get to see more of him.
Yeah, you were talking, was it last episode, about his relationship with his axe?
Yeah, exactly. So Doran's like, you haven't had to use that axe of yours in a very long time. I hope you remember how. And Ario's like, yeah, I fucking sleep with this thing every night. Like, yeah, I remember how. So funny. Ario and his axe is like a boy and his dog, basically.
Basically.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. And then it cuts to Jaime and Bronn. And this, I think, may be my favorite Westerosi song. Are you familiar with it?
The Dornishman's Wife?
Yeah.
Just from Bronn singing it.
Just from Bronn singing it, so you don't know all the words?
No.
I think we need to read all the words. So here are the lyrics. The Dornishman's wife was as fair as the sun. Her kisses were warmer than spring. But the Dornishman's blade was made from black steel, and its kiss was a terrible thing. The Dornishman's wife would sing as she bathed, in a voice that was sweet as a peach. But the Dornishman's blade had a song of its own, and a bite sharp and cold as a leech.
Ew.
As he lay on the ground, with the darkness around, and the taste of his blood on his tongue, his brothers knelt by him and prayed him a prayer, and he smiled and he laughed and he sung. Brothers, oh brothers, my days here are done. The Dornishman's taken my life. But what does it matter? For all men must die, and I've tasted the Dornishman's wife.
Oh my goodness.
So Jaime's trying to get him to stop singing because he doesn't want everybody in Dorne to know that they're from King's Landing, right?
Yeah.
And Bronn's like, you're cutting me off early. He says, this song really is all about the ending. I'm just getting to the good part, he tells him. So funny.
He's like, Jaime's like, it can wait.
Yeah, totally. So they spot another, like a line of Dornishmen riding towards the water gardens, and they're like, that's where we want to go. Jaime's like, that's the water gardens up there. So Bronn's like, well, once we've got the princess, then what? Jaime's like, I like to improvise.
That explains the golden hand.
Yeah, that's a good point. Always have a plan, and it foreshadows the complete failure of this operation. But it's also worth noting that it was improvisation, the tale of the sapphires and Tarth, which led to his hand being cut off in the first place. So it really was a direct result of his improvisation and trying to manipulate Locke and those guys that cut off his hand that led to that event happening. So Bronn is a little bit more right on the money than he may even know he is.
Realize.
Yeah.
Nice.
What do you got next? Water gardens?
So I have the water gardens. I have the sand snakes and Ilaria, and they're in like what looks like a bathhouse almost.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, unbowed, unbent, unbroken for Oberyn.
Yep. Words of House Martell, unbowed, unbent, unbroken, just for anybody who didn't know that.
And I watched the scene a little bit more closely with knowing that it was such a disappointment to book readers. And the more I paid attention to the fight sequences of the sand snakes, I have to agree, compared to the rest of the show, it was done fairly sloppily, if you will.
The other thing that book readers didn't like about it is that it's so improbable that Jaime and Bronn are showing up there to capture Myrcella right as this attack is going down, and it just seems so unfeasible. It seemed a
little too perfect timing. Like they're both going after Myrcella right at the same day, at the same time.
And it's this type of writing that that leads most fans to consider season 5 the low point of the series.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, mostly because of Dorne.
I can see that. I can definitely see why that would, cause people to think that. I find season 5 a huge springboard into, the end of the series.
Right. And it's got, as well as the worst moments in the show, it's also got some of the best moments.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. But I have to agree and even knowing that even further, that makes more sense. But I do have to agree that it was a little sloppily put together and kind of out of character from a perspective of we're used to seeing people nearly missing each other, not being
all converging at the same moment.
At the same time.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
For an extraction of a princess, nonetheless. It's kind of like fairy tale-ish, if
Totally.
you will.
Yeah, exactly. What other thing that pisses me off, and it's not from like a production standpoint, it's just it pisses me off about the character Ilaria. She's like, for Oberyn, but she was there at King's Landing at the wedding when Oberyn told Cersei, we don't hurt little girls in Dorne, you know? So she should fucking know better that this is not something that would be endorsed by Oberyn. So saying for Oberyn is just bullshit here.
Yeah, it's not for Oberyn, it's for yourself.
Right.
It's for your own vendetta because you're freaking pissed.
Totally. So the Sand Snakes go out, and Jaime and Bronn are already with Myrcella and Trystane, which is pretty funny, right?
When I love Marcella because they're just sitting there making out, and she hears Marcella. She goes, Uncle Jaime? Like, what are you doing here? So total sidebar. I have a great story about my uncle. His name is not Jaime, but when I was up at Oregon State, it was my birthday, and I was house sitting for one of my professors, and she lived about 6 or 7 miles out of town. And I locked my keys in my car at her house. So I was walking, like back to the highway essentially, and then cross over the highway to get to back to campus where I lived. And as I was crossing over the highway, which was probably like 4 miles from her house, so I had walked about 4 miles in July.
Damn.
In flip-flops and pajamas.
Brutal.
So I crossed the freeway, or not the freeway. It's like a, there was a light for me to cross. And I feel like really creepy because I feel a car pull up behind me, and I like kind of freaked out because that's scary.
Right.
And all of a sudden I hear Rachel, and I turn around, and it's my Uncle Rod, who lives in California, and he's like in Corvallis.
Where's Corvallis?
It's in Oregon.
Oh, shit.
It's where I went to school.
That's hardcore.
Apparently, his headquarters, his work headquarters is in Corvallis, and he was up there for a client meeting, and he was stopped at the light and watched me cross the street.
That's nuts. I had sort of a similar thing happen to me, too. I was down in Georgia, in Atlanta, and think about, it's Atlanta, Georgia. How many Starbucks do you think there are in that city?
A ton.
Hundreds,
ton
of them.
Thousands.
Right. So I'm at this random Starbucks with my friend Justin, and we walk in, and I just so happen to at that moment be telling him about how my aunt lives in Atlanta, and I look over and my aunt is sitting there, and I was like, no freaking way. Like, that is just too weird.
Yeah, so it was funny when she had that same reaction, because I had that reaction too. Like, I was so excited and kind of like weirded out. Like, what are you doing here? But I was so relieved because he was able to give me a ride back to my house and then back to my car, because I was going to have to walk back with my keys. But
Pre-Uber.
It was just, this was way before Uber, honey.
That's what I mean. It's funny.
This is way before Uber.
Yeah.
So yeah, he gave me a ride, and then he took me out to lunch for my birthday, and it was an awesome birthday.
Sweet. Victory was yours.
So back to the show.
So yeah, Jaime's like, let's speak in private, and then Trystane steps up and introduces himself, and Myrcella says, they're engaged, and Jaime's like, excellent, nice to meet you, but Bronn's like, why don't you let them have some time alone, son? And Trystane's like looking over Bronn's armor, and something doesn't feel right, so he like reaches for his sword, or he's like thinking about it, and Bronn can tell, and Bronn's like, let's not do something stupid. Trystane tries to draw his sword, and Bronn just punches him so fast. And it's like, that was something stupid. And Myrcella's freaking out.
She's like, oh my God.
Jaime is trying to grab her to get her out of there, and whoosh, Whip Girl wraps up Jaime's arm. And that's when the whole battle starts, and Bronn's like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, none of this makes any sense. So one of the Sand Snakes is wielding a spear. Obara, one is wielding a whip. Is that Tyene or Nym? I can't remember which is which.
It's Nym.
Okay. So that's
Nym is the Whip Girl.
Nym is the Whip Girl. And then Dagger Girl, a.k.a. Carl Tanner, is Tyene. So they're all fighting, and Lady Nym eventually gets to Myrcella and starts like dragging her away. And I think Tyene cuts Bronn's arm. So we know about Oberyn putting poison on his weapons. So immediately we should be worried for Bronn here.
Especially because the camera pans to the cut.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
It gives you, like, it got his skin, he's bleeding.
Yeah, they're making note of it.
Yeah.
So that's when Ario shows up.
Drop your weapons.
Yeah. And his men just surround everybody. And Obara, like, has to, give a little monologue, like, I'm Oberon's daughter. I fight for Dorn. Who do you fight for? And everybody's just like, oh my God, shut up.
Yeah, like, drop your weapons, you stupid bitch.
Slowly they drop all their weapons. And Ario, like, spins over towards Jamie and brings his big ass axe, like, right down by Jamie's neck. And Jamie's like kind of at an angle, like, and Jamie gets bitch made. Bitch made, motherfucker. It's hard to watch Jamie get bitch made. But, Ario has a good line. When you were whole, it would have been a good fight. And
I love that because it gives Jamie the respect that he's due as being, like, a well-known fighter, but also throwing it in his face like, I could just chop your head off right this second.
Like, you're no match.
But I'm not going to do it because you're not whole and I respect you kind of at the level of a fighter.
Yeah, I like that too. So Jamie drops his sword with his tail between his legs. Bronn drops his sword and he says to Tyene, you fight pretty good for a little girl, right? Yeah, and she freaks out. And that's something that I'm sure pissed off book readers too, because
she kind of wigs out.
Yeah, a sand snake from the books would never be this easily riled up and then subdued so simply.
Got it.
Never. So that's way out of character for sand snakes. The way she, like,
how
totally
many are there in
like
the book? Are there 3 in the book?
There's like 8.
Because I was gonna say Oberyn has 8 daughters.
Yeah, I mean there's a bunch. Some are younger than others. There's these 3 are 3 big important ones for sure in the books.
Got it. Okay.
So they all get sort of dragged out of there, and then Ilaria is still in the bathhouse and seems so shocked when all of Ario Hota's men come in and corner her. And it's like, what were you expecting?
Right?
Like, so dumb. You are really dumb for real.
You are really dumb for real.
Oh my God.
Ilaria. So yeah, I'm just like, merp. God damn it, Ilaria. You just gotta ruin everything. Ruined the sand snakes. You ruined, like, the
Dorn.
Yeah, basically. And she was so good in season 4 too. Like, she was awesome.
I still love her character even when she's spiteful. There's something about her that she's just passionate. And I don't know, she's dumb, but she's like blind. She's blinded by what happened.
Yeah, totally. So it's understandable from a certain perspective for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all I had for my notes. What about you?
Same here. That wraps it up.
Nice.
So stick with us, guys. We'll be right back after a short break. That's What Do You Mean, featuring Celeste Collins by Pold. Check him out at soundcloud.com/pold-music.
Help me on my feet.
And we're back with news about Game of Thrones. From Associated Press, a professor names beetle species after Game of Thrones.
Oh, thank you for not giving me this one.
You're welcome. Who knows? Maybe there'll be difficulty in the next one, though. So
maybe.
Lincoln, Nebraska. A Nebraska entomologist has named 3 of his 8 newest beetle discoveries after the dragons or wyverns, as we know from last episode, from the HBO series Game of Thrones and George R.R. Martin's book series A Song of Ice and Fire. University of Nebraska-Lincoln professor Brett Ratcliffe named the new scarab beetle species Gementis dragoni, Gementis regali, and Gementis viserioni, the Omaha World Herald reported. The names are Latinized versions of Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion.
Oh.
3 dragons owned by Daenerys Targaryen's character in the fictional world. Ratcliffe said he's a fan of the series, but ultimately chose the names to draw attention to biodiversity and the amount of undiscovered species. He says, when you create names like these, you do it to gain a little bit of notoriety and bring public attention to it. We're still discovering life on Earth. 1 of every 4 living things on Earth is a beetle. We haven't discovered them all. We're not even close. Ratcliffe says he's named hundreds of species over his 50-year career, and creating new names becomes difficult. Naming rules recommend against using humor or insults and are particularly useful to avoid having duplicate names, he said. Ratcliffe said he went with the pop culture reference to have a little bit of fun. I've often thought that scientists take themselves too seriously, Ratcliffe said, and this is a way to circumvent that. Dragoni and Viserioni can be found in Colombia and Ecuador, while Regali is in the French Guiana. All 3 have orange features, or Guyana.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll post an article about it too, because the beetles are pretty cool looking. And I thought this was a funny story to include, since we recently covered the
Orson.
Orson Lannister, yeah.
I was thinking Orson would love these beetles.
Smash the beetles. Smash them, smash them.
Smash the beetles.
Yeah. Yep.
Next, from winteriscoming.net. University students write, cast, and perform their own version of Game of Thrones Season 8.
And this sounds super cool.
By Dan Selk. Can you not wait to watch the final season of Game of Thrones? You are not alone. Earlier this year, students at Boston University broke and wrote their own versions. Broke and wrote?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
You can just say wrote.
Yeah. Earlier this year, students at Boston University wrote their own versions of the final 6 scripts for a class put together by veteran TV writer-producer. Then they cast actors from the Boston area, secured a space, grabbed some props, and filmed a dramatic reading of their work. HBO even sent them an Iron Throne for their trouble. What? That's awesome.
That's nuts.
And now you can watch the fruits of their labors on YouTube. It's the closest you'll get to experiencing the ending of Game of Thrones without, actually doing that. The full season read-through takes about 6 hours, 1 hour per episode. If you have the time as winter break winds down, sit back, relax, and let these Boston area thespians take you away to Westeros. As far as final tests go, this beats the hell out of a written exam. I assume everybody passed. I'm sure.
Classic.
If you have a mind to, you can read the first 6 scripts of what the students wrote here, or sign up to read the rest here. It'll be fun to see what, if anything, the students guessed right in the actual season 8 drop in April. We'll post a link to the article with these links for you to get the scripts.
And you can actually watch the dramatic performances as well. They have all 6 hours of it.
Nice.
Up. So we'll post that, and you guys can get a little sneak peek at the BU students' imaginary version of Game of Thrones Season 8, which sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, cool. I like that.
On to Game of Thrones and history, finishing off the article from Time.com, 9 books to read about the real history behind Game of Thrones by Sarah Begley.
Sonny Bean, Dissecting the Legend of Scotland's Infamous Cannibal Killer Family.
Ooh.
By Blaine L. Pardoe. This story is likely fictional, but some fans have pointed out similarities between the cannibal faction of the Wildlings and the legend of Sonny Bean clan, which was said to have murdered and eaten 1,000 people over a 25-year period while living in the Scottish sea cave. Weird.
Yeah, totally weird.
Experts believe the legend was probably invented as a form of anti-Scottish propaganda.
Anti-Scottish propaganda? That's not good, laddie.
Propaganda.
If it's not Scottish, it's crap.
If it's not Scottish, it's crap.
Next is Hadrian and the Triumph of Rome by Anthony Everett. The wall along the northern border of the Seven Kingdoms bears a similarity to Hadrian's Wall, built along the northern border of Britannia to keep out the barbarians, aka Scots. Something about that anti-Scottish propaganda there. Roman emperor ordered his version to be built when he visited Britain in 122 CE at a height of 12 to 15 feet. It hardly compares to the massive wall defended by the Night's Watch.
Caw, caw.
What was that?
What the heck was that?
Sir Matthew of House Repp. We both peddle fantasies. Mine are at least entertaining. Baelish shows his true beliefs concerning the faith of the Seven, and in fact all religions. Littlefinger only believes in himself and what he can see. His next stop in his climb to power seems to be the Warden of the North, no matter who wins. He asks Cersei to make him Warden if he kills Sansa. If Stannis wins and he names her Wardeness, he plans to marry her. He really does not see any outcome where the Boltons emerge victorious. Yeah, that's pretty hardcore. He doesn't even plan a contingency for a Bolton victory.
Yeah.
Except for himself going to kill the Boltons if they end up winning with the Knights of the Vale.
Yeah, but they have Winterfell to protect them, you know, like...
Yeah, they say, 500 men could defend against 10,000 at Winterfell or something?
Yeah.
Or 100,000 or something ridiculous?
Yeah, so, I mean, that's a great point, Sir Matthew. He didn't count all the threats like he's talked to Sansa about before.
Right, totally.
Like, know what all angles people can come at you, basically.
Yeah, and he definitely didn't see the Jon angle, as we mentioned earlier, too.
No.
Sir Matthew goes on, poor Jorah has to hear about his father's passing third hand from his captive. Did Tyrion ever see Jorah fight in Westeros to know his prowess, or was he just working his game on the slavers? Matthew goes on, Arya has to face the fact that she is lying to herself when she says she hated Sandor.
Yes, absolutely.
He could have been at some of those tourneys and having witnessed him jousting. Because he is old enough, and it was recent enough where it was tournaments where Jaime would have been going and competing, and Tyrion could have been there too.
Yeah, as like a young boy.
Mm-hmm.
True.
But yeah, I definitely didn't see him in any battles or anything like that.
No. Okay. Next, from Luke the Low Duke. Just trying to catch up with you on the rewatch. Season 5, Episode 4. So good. Smiley emoji and thumbs up. Thanks, man. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Low Duke. Lady Sarah of House Larkham. I felt this was one of the weakest episodes of Game of Thrones because of the sand snakes and the fight scene and how the episode ended. This episode foreshadows how two of the sand snakes die in Season 7, Episode 2. Ooh, right back and let us know how, because I can't remember. Something about Whip Girl, when she wraps the whip around Jaime, maybe because she ends up hanging from her own whip, right?
I think she gets strangled by it.
Yeah, she's hanging off the prow of the ship, and then Obara gets impaled on her own spear, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Something like that.
Very good catch.
Oh yeah, nice. She goes on, we see Tyrion and Jorah sort of start to build trust with each other by convincing Malco to let Jorah fight in the fighting pits in Meereen, and foreshadows Season 7, Episode 6, when Tyrion and Jorah quickly catch up before Jorah, Gendry, and Jon go to the wall. I loved when Sansa said to Miranda, I am Sansa Stark of Winterfell, and you cannot intimidate me. I had to skip the ending because it was horrific the first time.
Yeah,
I
don't disagree.
Don't blame you. Yeah, for real.
Hello, it's Zach with feedback for Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken. Oh, what great words from House Martell. This episode could have been so much better. I don't dislike this episode because of the Dornish storyline. I dislike it because of the end. But I wish the Dornish storyline would have been better. I wanted to see Ariel Hota fight Sir Aerys Oakheart. That's what I wanted to see in the Dornish storyline. Ariel with his awesome axe versus Knight of the Kingsguard. Anyway, we can't have everything. We can't have the 13 seasons of Game of Thrones that Grimm said that they could have done. But we got an awesome show. The best show on TV, bar none, not even close, in my humble opinion. It starts off with very harsh lessons for Arya. They play the game of faces, and Arya gets shown real fast that they play for keeps in the House of Black and White, and they're not messing around. But she finally makes it to that Hall of Faces. That place is creepy. Jeez Louise. Man, that is so creepy. So insanely creepy. Littlefinger schemes again. That's what I titled that note. Schemer's gonna scheme. And Cersei's right there scheming with him. Two top level players playing the game. Man, knowing what we know that Littlefinger has done with Roose and Sansa at Winterfell, he's such a good player, Littlefinger is. He's weaseling his way into controlling the North, no matter what happens, whether Roose wins, whether Stannis wins, or whether Cersei defeats whoever comes out on top between the first two. Littlefinger is, he's a slick snake, but I admire the way he plays the game. I thought it was very interesting when Doran Martell is talking about Myrcella. He calls her a Lannister, not a Baratheon.
Oh,
officially,
good catch.
Joffrey, Tommen, and Myrcella are all Robert Baratheon's trueborn children. We know the truth, but of course, Ned and the Stannis letter went out calling them all bastards born of incest, but you would think that Doran Martell would, I don't know, maybe go with the official line here, but maybe not since, well, I don't know. In the books, he's scheming more than he does in the show. But anyway, I'm not going to go into all that. But I thought it was very interesting. He called her a Lannister, not a Baratheon. In that Holy Inquest scene, Tommen is such a twat. His Kingsguard is right there behind him. They've bared their steel, and they're ready to go to town. Tommen, use your Kingsguard. They're there. Use them. You don't have to be vicious like Joffrey was, but use what you got, brother. Don't be a twat. The wedding scene under the weirwood tree in Winterfell, or just outside Winterfell, if not for being who it was for, the wedding, that was really a beautiful scene. You know, the scenery, the furnishings, where it was right there under the heart tree in the cold and the snow. It's really a beautiful scene, if not for being so disheartening, especially knowing what's about to happen. It's really, from a photography or videography standpoint, really, really beautiful. And all I have to say about the end is fuck you, Ramsay. That is all. Goodbye.
Thanks for calling in, Zach. Always good to hear from you, brother. And thanks for writing in, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. And ladies. Lords and ladies out there.
Yes, tavern wenches and salt wives. All right, that's our show, episode 88. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening.
Also, a huge shout out to John Bailey, the epic voice guy from the Emmy-nominated Honest Trailers, for announcing our podcast.
Hope you all have a happy new year.
Yeah, have a great new year, guys. If you'd like to donate or subscribe to support us, you can go to paypal.me/GOMpodcast and patreon.com/GOMpodcast to donate an amount of your choosing. There are links to both of those at gameofmicrophones.com.
Doing some online shopping? Go to gameofmicrophones.com and click on our link to Amazon. As an Amazon associate, we earn from qualifying purchases.
Any contribution you make helps, and you can help secure the continued existence of Game of Microphones. We'd also like to thank our patrons, Sir Matthew of House Repp, Lady Lucy of House Roberts, Lady Candace of House Tews, Lord Jeff of House Allen, Sirenicide, and Luke the Low Duke. We love you guys and appreciate your patronage.
Yes, thank you guys so much. You're awesome. We also want to give a huge thanks to Lady Lisa of House Sky, Pie Romancer. She has been key behind the scenes working to get GameOfMicrophones.com up and running. She is also a world-class artist.
For real.
That's not even a joke.
Yeah.
Check out her amazingly illustrated children's book, The People You May See. It's available now on Amazon. Check her out at fineartsbylisa.com, Instagram.com/fineartsbylisa, and Facebook.com/fineartsbylisa.
Next episode, we'll be covering Season 5, Episode 7, The Gift. Give it a watch and send us your thoughts. We'd love to read them on air. If you'd like to call, you can call us at 813-JOFFREY. That's 813-563-3739.
If you would like to write in, you can email us at ravens@gameofmicrophones.com.
Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOM podcast. And while you're there, give us a like and a rating. And for some reason, we're still not showing up on the iTunes search results, for at least for the podcasts app on iPhone. So head over to iTunes and give us a nice 5-star review to help bump us back up into the search results. We'd appreciate it.
And slap. You can also listen to Game of Microphones on YouTube, BitChute, and Steemit. Just search for Game of Microphones to find our channel. We can't create a custom URL on YouTube until we have at least 100 subscribers, so please subscribe as well. Likes, comments, and shares are also greatly appreciated.
We're also on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, etc. Any place you can get your podcasts. We always forget to mention that. I add it in here.
Yeah.
And we're also on Twitter, Instagram, Gab, and Minds at GOM Podcast.
And we're on Tumblr too, at Game of Microphones.
All right, that's our show.
Thanks for listening. Up there, that's the water gardens.
Once we get the princess, then what?
I like to improvise.
That explains the golden hand.
When I grow up, I want to be a cock merchant.
You said Valor Mugulis or something. Mugulis. What is it? Oysters, cockles, and something.
Oysters, clams, and cockles.
It's
perfect. Perfect.
She has no idea what's going on.
She's like, what?
Yeah, what? Jockin wakes her up by asking, "Who are you?"
Which is creepy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to wake up to that. I'd be like, what?
To execute that little girl, which is not funny. So I don't know why I was laughing when I said that. I don't know if she's really just completely disconnected. If she's as dense as quark gluon plasma, you know, peace and love. Tom Baratheon. That's his campaign slogan.
That's awesome.
Oh, he's such a dumbass. So what's your number 3?
Good question. My number 3 is fuckers.
Totally. And I'd be like, fuck that. And the High Sparrow makes the announcement that the Faith is satisfied that there is enough evidence to bring a formal trial for Sir Loras and Queen Marjorie.
Dun dun dun.
And this is when he realizes, it's only now, way too late, that he realizes that he's completely surrounded and outnumbered. Ramsay let me come with him on that hunt.
That was creepy.
Hey, dude. So my headphones, I've had them since the 1900s.
Yeah.
Literally.
The lanterns leading.
Yeah, the lanterns. Love that shit.
My God. I loved it. And everyone looks so pretty with like the snow in their hair. And
yep.
Her nostrils flare.
Yeah.
I got you now. I told you to rake. Or to look, not to rake. I told you to rake.
You're rather ripe today, Reek.
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
And, yeah. A new bastard of Winterfell.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Grumpkins
Snarks
and Snarks.
And Grumpkins, yeah. It will be a dwarf-sized cock.
Yes, again.
Yes.
Like, what the fuck's a cock merchant?
Right.
Oh my God.
Sure. He's a bit long in the tooth, a bit withered, been in the sun too long. We can all see that.
You get it. You get what I'm doing.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, yeah. And his eyes are darting all around. His little hands are folded.
Yeah,
and
his little fingers.
His little fingers are all folded, like holding each other.
Brothers, oh brothers, my days here are done. The Dornishman's taken my life. But what does it matter? For all men must die, and I've tasted the Dornishman's wife.
Oh my goodness.
I'm Oberyn's daughter. I fight for Dorn. Who do you fight for? And everybody's just like, oh my God, shut up. So yeah, I'm just like, merp. God damn it, Ilaria. You just gotta ruin everything. Smash the Beatles. Smash them, smash them.
Smash the Beatles.
Anti-Scottish propaganda, that's not good, laddie.
Propaganda.
If it's not Scottish, it's crap.
If it's not Scottish, it's crap.
Doing some online shopping? Go to gameofmicrophones.com and click on our link to Amazon. As an Amazon associate, we learn... As an Amazon associate, we earn from qualifying purchases.
Any contribution you make, any contribution you make helps, and you can help secure the continued existence of Game of Microphones.